Shed Hunting 2020 AW Group Chat. Welcome back, everyone. We're ready to roll and talk about this year's expectations as well as just shed hunting in general. I think that's going to be our main theme for the day, but also just kind of checking in off season, February here. We're all kind of excited to transition out of the craziness that is the hunting season into what I personally feel is the fun time of getting your place, your hunting setup ready for the next season. And kind of the advantage of that is getting to track down some sheds that are dropping here over the next few weeks. So Clay, Seth, welcome back. How are we all doing today?
Good,
Everything's
guys.
good.
Good.
Looking forward to chatting a little bit about, I think, what all three of us would say is one of our favorite weekends of the year is the shed hunt for AW. We're 3 weeks out from this weekend, and let's chat some strategy and make sure we're going to give it our best run.
Social media's been popping, that's for sure. I think we're all agreeing that every time we refresh Instagram or a new YouTube video pops up, we're getting jealous of the guys that are in the woods already. But we definitely got more of that to come the next few weeks until we're able to get out ourselves. So, Seth, what do you got thinking? What's going on?
I was just saying the weather's warmed up the last couple of days. You guys probably had it up by you in Wisconsin as well, that 2-day stretch of sub-zeros, and then we actually got back up into the 40s yesterday. So, we're recording this on the 16th of February. So like we said, 3 weeks out from our big shed hunt, and it's kind of that lull. You guys know the season ends, and then you basically have the month of February where it's cold. There's not a lot to do, and you're just like, I think that's why there's so much anticipation for shed hunting every single year, because you're just ready to get back outside, whether it's Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, wherever. And
yeah,
so I'm looking forward to it.
There's definitely temptation to get down a little early and see if you can find those first few sheds maybe before the squirrels get to them. But I think Clay can touch on it a little bit, and myself too, that we've tried to resist that temptation as much as possible, and we're waiting for that first weekend in March before we even touch the farm. We haven't been down, Clay, since when?
We literally haven't stepped foot on our farm since the end of December, and it was a late season bow hunt that was pretty underwhelming, if everyone can recall. December of this past year was very warm temperature across the Midwest, and our hunt was less than desirable, to put it lightly.
It was terrible.
It was tough. So looking forward to getting back down there and just level setting and having a fun weekend. Speaking of timing, Seth, you were out just yesterday, weren't you? Checking some cams.
I was, yeah. And so I'll get to that in just a second. So I think the big question everyone wants to know is it time to go? Like how many, what percentage it dropped? We actually took a quick poll on Instagram last night, and, we got answers anywhere from 30% to 90%, but it kind of felt like most people still thought that 60 to 70% of deer were still holding antlers, at least in the Midwest. So, I have it a little differently down in Iowa since we can bait. So it helps, to take inventory, because especially in the cold weather and snow, deer are a lot more attracted to those sites. So taking inventory and having at least a reasonable estimate for what you feel is, still holding antlers. I still say that 60 to 70%. We actually, so I'll get to this again in a second, but we came around on one of the farms and we jumped about 15 or 20 deer, and there were 5 bucks, 2 were half racks. So 3 had both sides, 2 half racks. And it looked like there was maybe 1 or 2 shed bucks in the group. I mean, they were, 150 yards away, but just, you kind of know when a buck, it's bigger body, it runs a little different. And so that's, frankly, the worst case scenario, because all those deer ran onto the neighbor's ground.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. We were just checking cameras, and, hopefully those deer will return back to our property before they drop. But, like you said, that's kind of why I think we try to wait until March before we're going stomping around in there, is that let those deer get good and comfortable. We know there's a few out there already, but let's let the majority of them drop before it really makes sense to go. But
yeah, definitely. And for us, we've got all this extra food that we've talked about before that's sitting around on purpose, that we're hopeful that, because we haven't touched the farm in 2 months now, that food's keeping them there, keeping them nice and comfortable, low pressure. The social pressure might be up a little bit because we do think that a lot of deer moved into our property. At least that was what the plan was and why we left so much food. Ultimately, that could cause some just social pressure that the deer might not love long term. But when it's cold, like the last few days, they have no choice. When there's snow on the ground, they got to go to where the food is. And we still feel like we've got ample enough. I mean, Clay, what do you figure we've got standing still out of our 10 or so acres we left? I mean,
it's the $1 million question. I've thought about that a lot. Is there no food left? Is there a lot? Not sure. So
yeah,
we'll figure that out in 3 weeks. And this year we're going down. It's 2020. The weekend of March 7th is the weekend we got tagged as our AW group shed hunt. So we'll be headed down to Illinois, our farm, and seeing what we can stumble across. The reason why we're doing it that weekend, it's kind of become a little bit of tradition. The last 3 years, we've done it the first weekend in March, and it's treated us well in terms of the percentage of deer bucks that we feel have shed already, and also not waiting too long where the horns would be chewed up. So that's kind of the reason why we chose that weekend.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Seth, I think you did officially yesterday find the first shed of the 2020 season for AW, correct? Is this official?
We did. Yeah, I was out with the farmer that lets me hunt, Tom, and just like I said, checking some cameras and restocking some bait sites. I've spent a lot of money on that Big Time product this year, but expensive shed antlers. But yeah, it was just a little 6-pointer or half of a 6-pointer, 3-point side, and it was in a nice. We still have a good amount of snow here. A lot's melted yesterday and today, but it was in one of those gimmies that was just laying on that matted down grass. You could see the pedicle, super easy. So
we'll put the leaderboard up. We'll put the leaderboard up right here. Seth 1, Clay and I 0 so far. So, yep.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
To touch on one thing that Clay said it earlier. There's really very few there's not a lot of downside to waiting. You mentioned the squirrels. I mean, everybody hates that. You find a nice shed that's chewed up and you're just like, man, what would this thing look like clean? That's probably the biggest drawback. If you have to worry about, shed poachers or, if you're on public ground, obviously there are probably people that aren't going to wait. So maybe it makes sense to go in there easier. But other than that, I mean, why not wait until most of the deer have dropped versus trying to find 25 or 40% of the antlers that are potentially going to be out there? To me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So as hard as it is to stay patient, I just prefer to wait personally.
Yeah. And I think
part of the beauty of having private property, right? Owning and knowing you're the only person that's supposed to be on that farm. That's part of the beauty of it. So we're fortunate for that.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree we've had a pretty mild winter here in the Midwest. Only a few short cold snaps. You have to wonder if that weekend that we've chosen, and we've had to do it due to schedules, and it's kind of always the target weekend in general, will there still be a significant percentage of deer holding at that point down by our farm or maybe in Iowa or something like that? It's always a risk, and ultimately, though, we feel the vast majority will be down by then. It's just science; it has to happen, regardless of temps. But there might be a few more holding. We'll see. I would expect in the next 3 weeks we will get another cold snap or two. It always seems to work out that way, but there's, that early March time frame is at some point you can't wait any longer. So,
right.
I think ideally it'll work itself out, but something that always is in the back of my mind for sure.
I was reading an article, when was it, last week, and I forgot who wrote it, but they were saying a good rule of thumb they've used for when deer are dropping their horns is 20% drop before Feb, 60% drop in the month of February, and the remaining 20% drop sometime after Feb. So if we're going with that logic, we should have approximately 80% on the ground by the time we get down to Illinois in early March. Yeah. So that's a good number for me.
Yeah, and I think it's probably, people probably debate this as well, but I think it's kind of like the rut. I mean, I think it happens pretty much the same time every year, regardless of how harsh the conditions are. I definitely notice on the higher snow volume and colder years, like last year, we had a brutal February. It seems like those sheds are concentrated a little bit more because the deer are herded up a little bit more.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know, and I don't claim to be a biologist or whatever, but I believe it's all related to testosterone. And, maybe if there's an injury or something like that, that might cause them to shed earlier, and there's vast number of reasons. But if we're talking majority, there's always exceptions, but I think that those percentages that Clay threw out have to be pretty close.
Ultimately, they're on a clock, like you said. I mean, it's they do start regenerating those antlers fairly quickly after dropping if they're waiting until this February timeframe. I forget if it's a few weeks, a month, or something like that, but you'll start seeing nubs pretty quickly. I mean, early in the spring, right? I mean, they have to be full grown by a certain time frame to shed by a certain time frame. They're velvet, and then testosterone levels spike up. I think that's the ultimate driver. There's a dozen articles out there you can Google pretty quickly, but they're always pretty interesting to take a look at because there is some sort of science behind it, which is beyond our comprehension at this point. So one thing we've been hitting on a little bit was weather leading up to the shed hunt. Clay, I know you're big on focusing and praying for weather to be right while we're shed hunting. Can you get into that a little bit more?
Dude, I have been praying. It's my worst fear is that first week in March. Obviously, if there's a snowstorm right before and there's snow on the ground, that's going to make it challenging. But assuming that's not going to be the case, odds are we're not going to have snow down there at that time. My biggest fear is not temperature. It's related to sunny days. And I've noticed in the last several years, if you're shed hunting on a sunny day, the shadows, the just sheer brightness that you're working against, your only chance to really cover ground good is have the sun at your back and walk with the sun kind of beaming out, because if you walk into the sun, I can only imagine the amount of sheds you're going to be walking by. So that's where I'm at in terms of weather. Cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Yep.
Great points.
Yeah, last year was we got pretty lucky with overcast, but the year before we had two nice warm sunny days, which most people would love to have if you're doing yard work or something like that. But for us, a nice cloudy day is a-okay by me too, for sure. So, and a little on the cooler side isn't a bad thing when you're putting on 5-6 miles in an afternoon. Nice cool day, stay comfortable. So definitely important. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say that too. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand with, how fast you can go through something. If you're putting 10 miles on of hiking in a day, but really, I mean, it takes us 2 full days on your guys' farm to, how many acres is it total? Remind me.
500.
Yeah. I mean, that's 5 guys or 6 guys, within speaking distance apart usually, and just kind of gridding the whole entire property. So like you say, I mean, going back to your question or your comment about the sun, Clay, that can wear on your eyes a lot, So.
And the question is, do you wear sunglasses or do you not? Because the sunglasses give you a different coloration, and do the horns look different enough on the ground where they're going to pop at you with sunglasses on? It gets into a whole bunch of nonsense.
Yep, absolutely.
You're going to miss a few regardless of what the conditions are. I mean, we find oldies every year that you either missed or they dropped after you went. And, we've probably all walked by more than we've cared to admit, but
absolutely.
I mean,
and
taking your time
yeah.
is, yeah, I was just going to say, take your time, because there is a tendency to want to rush through it and look through it all, but kind of, especially when you're going as a pack, like, we approach your farm, just, take your time, search it good, and hope for the best.
And I think the cool part about how we do it as a group is, you were hitting on that, Seth, is it's an event. It really is. I mean, it's more than just looking for an antler, right? It's the whole big concept. We're getting together as a group, playing cards at night, strategizing, before we go in, hooting and hollering when someone does find a nice shed. So it becomes a whole big thing. And at the end of the weekend, we look and we've got a UTV back full of antlers, and maybe a deadhead or two. We'll see, but it's a blast, no doubt. But when you do have a big group, you have to keep in mind like the etiquette side of it too, right? And I think, Seth, you wanted to maybe hit on that a little bit, as kind of a unique spin on how things are done with the way we kind of do it as a group.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, I'm a guest of your guys. It's your property, so anything I find, you get first dibs on, and it kind of stays with the landowner, land manager, however you want to say it. And that's totally cool with me. I'm just here. I like doing it, and I'm not here for keeps. I'm never gonna, I shouldn't say never, but I likely won't ever hunt that deer. So to me, it's like, really that having that antler of a deer you're gonna hunt makes it even more special. So I'm here to help you guys and just have a good time, like you said, for the event. On a public ground, I have this saying that a match stays together. So if all three of us are walking and I find one side and I holler at you guys, hey, come over, look what I found, and then we kind of spread out and we find the other side, I personally think that goes to the person that finds the first one. And whatever, I mean, you can be as serious or non-serious as you want to be about it, and I'm not going to be pissed if you keep it, but I'm just saying that's generally the rule that we go by, at some of the spots that we have permission on. And then I guess the last thing, if we want to talk about etiquette, take your time, because nobody likes that guy that gets out in front of the group and then likes to scan those real good southern spots right before everybody else is playing catch up. And you always got that one bird dog guy that's going through the thorns and he's twisting and turning because he got that trail that inevitably ends in a thorn bush, and you're like, how did that happen? But just, stick together. It's not a competition. And, don't make it cutthroat. And that's what really makes it fun with you guys, is everybody's on the same page.
And the one thing I want to piggyback on with that is, when you do inevitably find an antler, to not just go ahead and grab it right away and keep walking. Now, if you're really spread out and if it's like a little fork side or something like that, okay, maybe we do that. But if it's a deer that has some good size or we know about, let's bring the group together. Let's crack open a beer or two, talk about it, have a good laugh, maybe get a picture where the way it's laying naturally, or some video, whatever it might be, and then just kind of say, why was this antler here? Let's kind of analyze, so we can learn as a group to say, okay, like you said, it's on this southern exposure side. Deer are bedding with southern exposure most of the time this time of year. Or, hey, this is right next to a cedar, or maybe in some browse, or in a transition area between bedding and food, or maybe right into food. And having that dialogue, I think, is what really helps us year after year grow and understand, where are these deer at this time of year? Why are they here? Does this translate to the hunting season? I know the last couple of years, as the three of us have been together for the shed season down there in Illinois, we've learned a lot, I think, just by doing that little exercise each time and saying, okay, this is somewhere we need to look next year, or this deer is spending the off season on our property, or this is a surprise buck, something like that. It's really essential. It becomes a learning experience as well as a ton of fun. So definitely, that's something to keep in mind for sure. So anything else that we kind of
those are all on? I was just going to say, those are all great points. You really learn a ton about your property when you walk it on foot, pretty much every single inch. And that's a huge side benefit of shed hunting. Even if you're not finding sheds, you're saying, wow, I cannot believe the rubs that are in this area. This would be a great spot for late October or whatever. Or, like you said earlier, Cody, this buck that we had on camera all summer over here, and now we find a shed, on this side that might help you in the late season or whatever. And especially, you guys have done a great job. You have 1 or 2 or even 3 years of history with some of these deer. Yeah, it's going to help you be more successful next year because they're creatures of habit. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Absolutely. And there's parts of our property that are deemed sort of a sanctuary that we do not touch outside of this upcoming weekend. And there's still parts, Clay, that our dad and uncle haven't even really seen because they haven't been able to do the shed hunt the last couple of years. So this year I'm really excited for them to actually be able to see some of the most remote, dense, perfect bedding areas that we like to leave untouched and sight unseen the entire year outside of this weekend. So you never know what you're going to find. And then pair into the fact, Clay, you can probably touch on this a little bit, the EHD factor. I mean, we had a few deer you can probably get in that sort of disappeared this past early fall, late summer. That are we going to find them? Are they still alive? I don't know. Clay, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we found one deadhead that was out in the open in September that we feel pretty strongly was a EHD victim, and there's a few other decent bucks that we had around that did disappear. So we're fully going into it expecting we will be finding a couple more EHD victims, which is kind of is what it is. But just to kind of wrap it up from my point of view too, one suggestion I have is just to keep an open mind, and when you have people coming on to sections, whether it's your own farm or a piece of property that you just got permission to hunt on, keep an open mind and ask, in this instance, Seth, your brother Josh is coming down this year. Somebody who's just seen our property for the first time. Cody, Seth, me, we've been through our property multiple times. Ask Josh what his thoughts are and, use that fresh perspective to take a step back so we just don't get too ingrained in our old ways. And maybe he's got an idea of taking a shed hunt, Saturday morning, coming in from this angle instead of that angle because we get twisted up if we come in from the other angle. Just keep an open mind, and I think that's going to help us all.
Or even going another step to say, hey, Josh, what are your thoughts on this stand location as it translates to the hunting season? Do you see where the bedding area is? You see where the food is? Is this a good spot? Do you have suggestions? Things like that, that outside perspective, even coming from Seth, is something that we're going to definitely have to keep in mind and use that valuable time to grow and continue to manage the property the best we can. I mean, absolutely. And that's definitely something that we need to take and look forward to. So no doubt. Anything else, boys, that we're thinking of on the shed hunting side? I know 3 weeks from now we'll be all together enjoying some good exercise and a couple nice meals and some drinks and cards. It'll be a great time. Until then, though, I think we're going to be stalking the social media. We'll continue to post some more updates and thoughts as we hear them. Got our ear to the ground in certain areas, and we'll be communicating with the rest of the hunting community as much as possible. We've got a few photos from last year we might post, just kind of hyping up and getting psyched up ourselves. So be on the lookout for that with our Advantage Whitetail Instagram page, YouTube as well, Advantage Whitetail. Facebook we got up and running also. We'll be posting all of our videos there moving forward also, as well as engaging in a few different hunting groups and forums. So it's exciting still. We keep plugging away, keep growing a little bit at a time. And I think the group can probably all agree that we're thinking this shed season is going to be a memorable one. We're going to post some awesome content from it on all those platforms. And man, it's going to be a jumping off point for us, I think, heading into the 2020 season. There's going to be a lot of off-season videos we bring you also from both Iowa and our farm here in Illinois. And I think, guys, what do you think? Just kind of hopping into it. Exciting times?
It is. Other than the rut, I'd say this is number 2 on my list all year related to deer hunting. It's that much fun to me. I enjoy it.
Totally.
I'm gonna have to start training a little bit. It might be 10 miles, but it's 10 miles like this and with boots and thorns, and so it'll be fun.
It's always tough to move on Sunday morning. Let's put it that way. No matter how often you go to the gym, it's a different type of workout, that's for sure. So cool. Well, I think we can sign off with that, and yeah, we'll bring everybody updates as we see them. So thanks, appreciate the time, boys, and appreciate everybody out there for watching. And let us know what you think. We're always open to feedback. So till next time.
Catch you guys later.
See you guys.
See ya.
Have a good one.